Hello students, in this short video we'll talk about the different topics that you can choose or that we have to cover in A-levels in grade 12. We shouldn't be thinking about this really, but I just want to, make you curious or interested. And the different topics are: one, abnormality, which would be talking about what is normal, what is not normal, and the different factors that make something normal or not normal. Second is consumer behavior. What are the factors that affect our decision making that influences the economy or ourselves based on the products that we choose to buy? And we can see this in our environment, but now more importantly in social media, in advertisements, in our digital life. Next would be health. Now, this is more related to everyone, just health or mental health in general. We could talk about pain and stress, the different factors that affect our general well being. And lastly, it's work related psychology. Sometimes people call it work psychology or industrial psychology, but I guess we'll call it organizations in psychology and how people work together in the work setting. What affects efficiency in the workplace? What is an effective leadership style? And how can we best communicate with each other in the workplace, which also applies in school to a certain extent, right? Now, we will explore these topics, including the four approaches, if you remember. These four approaches using research methods, because remember, psychology is a science. We're not just making up theories and concepts. There's a study to it, and we can prove the connections between factors, or if one factor influences the other, using rigorous scientific research methodologies. And the more common ones, which are not exclusive to the other, would be experiments, self-reports, case study, observations, and correlations. I'm pretty sure one way or another you have encountered these experiments for sure. But experiments involving people or animals and observing their behavior or response to the environment or factors or stimuli is a little different in psychology because there are ethical standards that need to be observed, especially nowadays. In the past, you have more freedom to do experimentation with animals and even in humans, but nowadays there's a strict code that we need to follow. Self-reports would just be about gathering information from participants or respondents to a survey, and that they are willingly responding to that survey by giving you information, by giving the researcher information, and we call this a self-report. That's why it is self-reported. It's not us observing them, observing their behavior, but it's them reporting their thought processes and behavior. We'll get to know the specifics later. Case studies is for rare occasions and you cannot get many participants in a specific topic. For example, how do people who have relatives with cancer cope with the reality that their relative is going to pass away, someone who's terminally ill? It's hard to administer that survey to, let's say, 100, 200 people, but you can find a few people who are currently experiencing the sadness and, slowly coming into terms with the reality of a loved one passing away soon, right? So that is a case study in a way. You can also have a case study about someone with a specific abnormality or brain condition, or someone with an unusual personality or behavior. For observations, we are directly observing behavior. How do people behave at home, in school, in church, or in a certain event, or people from a certain religion or cult or whatever? There are different kinds of observational studies. You can observe people in experiments. So again, they're not exclusive to each other. You can do an observational experiment. You can do an observation in a field or in nature as they naturally behave, or in many other ways. Play therapy, when you let a kid play and observe their behavior and interact with them, is in a way an observational study. And in some cases, if you are participating in it, you can call it a participatory observational study. But we'll get to those in a bit. Correlations is actually more of a very common statistical method that we use for sometimes self-reports and yep, and in some other surveys. Correlation is a way to find a connection between two variables. For example, is there a connection or a relationship between amount of sleep and, let's say, attention? Or is there a connection between attention and short-term memory, your ability to store information that you recently perceived and let it stay in your brain for 30 seconds or so? And will you still be able to remember that? For example, if you easily misplace stuff, oh, where did I put my pen? Where did I put my book? Oh, I forgot this. Then probably you have a poor short-term memory. And we call that, the common term is short attention span or something, but it's mostly more about short-term memory. All right. And there are so many factors that you can connect. For example, and this one we talked about in class, childhood experience of abuse during childhood. Is it connected to law-abiding behavior? So the more abuse you experience as a child, the less likely you are to be a law-abiding citizen. And how do you even measure that? Criminal cases, history or criminal record, and then you'll probably ask very sensitive question, which means you need to establish confidentiality in your research, right? And many more, but we'll go to those in a bit. But I have some examples. Experiment, Milgram. Self-report, this is what we call the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. 21 items, seven questions for depression, 7 questions for anxiety, and 7 questions for stress. Case of Jeannie, the feral child. You watched the video about this. You can also read about this and watch some videos about it. If I'm not mistaken, Jeannie is still alive. Last time I read about her. You can go ahead and read the accounts of Jeannie. In some cases, as I mentioned earlier, a very curious thing to observe would be occults or cults, and now very relevant would be the behavior of people who are very politically energized. So behavior around political situations in news, in campaigns, in social media, etc. and so on. Yep, so that's about it. I'll make another video for experiments. See you there.